Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper, an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. Today I have for you a double angled front fun fold card. Some people call it the double angle fun fold, some people call it the angled front fun fold, so it's got a variety of names. But it's a card that looks kind of complicated, but isn't as complicated as you might think to create. But obviously here it has double angles on both of the front panels, hence the name. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make this today. The first thing you will need is a piece of cardstock that is 8.5 by 11. We're going to cut this down a little bit and make some magic with our Stampin' Up! Trimmer to create this card front. If you don't have the trimmer, you might want it by the end of the video, so you can check out my website here for all the Stampin' Up! Projects. And if you don't have a consultant that you are working with currently and you'd like a paper copy in your hand, like I prefer, just reach out to me either through the comments here or over on Facebook at The Faithful Stamper, and I would be happy to get a catalog to you. So let's go ahead and cut our paper. So this is our Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer, which cuts and scores. And this is really the perfect tool for this project. And I'll show you why here in a minute. The first thing we are going to do is take our 8.5 by 11 sheet and cut it down to 5.5 by 11. So we're just cutting 3 inches off. And this piece of cardstock you can put aside for another project. You will not need that for the rest of the card. Now I'm going to move my cutting blade out of the way to do some scoring. We are going to score 3 3/8 of an inch from either end of our 11-inch side. So 3 3/8. Always double check when I'm working with 8s and 16ths. 1, 2, 3. There we go. And so you can either flip the cardstock around and do 3 3/8 from this other end, or you can just slide it down and it's 7 5/8 if you prefer it all in one fell swoop. All right. So now, one thing you might want to do really quick is go ahead and fold your score lines. It might help you see them just a little bit better. And I'm going to take my bone folder and just run it across the edge real quick. Next, we're going to cut those angles, and this is where this trimmer comes in perfectly. So I'm going to teach you just the method for using this trimmer. If you don't have the trimmer, hop on over to my Facebook page and you'll see directions on how to do this separately without this trimmer. But here's the key thing that I found works the best mentally to help me keep straight my cuts. When you are working on your right-hand panel, keep your cuts to the right side of this cutting arm. And then when you're working on the left, you're going to do your cutting and measuring on the left side. That was a huge help for me once I realized that. This is cutting a little differently than you might be used to with a regular card, so to speak. So what we're going to do first is we're going to line up this right-hand score line with the cutting track. And then you're going to make use of this ruler that's at the halfway point. And I'm going to admit, before I made this card, I probably never used this line of measurement. I'm always using the top or the bottom. So having this middle one really works well. And I'm going to, like I said, line this score line up here in the cutting track. And this corner here, I'm going to put at the 1.5 inch mark. And that's right over here on the edge. So my corner goes there, and then I can pivot my paper up so that score line is right there on the cutting track. And I always double check to make sure it hasn't moved. Put my cutting arm all the way down and cut. So I've taken a little triangle off. And then the next cut I'm going to do, I'm going to put this corner that I just finished cutting in the cutting track and line up the bottom corner at the 1 inch mark. And then when I cut, I've created the double angle. Next, I'm going to flip to the other side and just repeat. So my score line goes in the cutting track and my corner goes over here at 1.5 inches. Make sure that's where I want it. Again, another little triangle. And then corner in the cutting track and the 1-inch mark for that bottom corner. Using that left-right trick just really helped me because it kind of is a little confusing cutting the angles, and I actually cut one of them completely wrong and had to start all over. So using the right and left trick really, really helped me figure this out. So the next thing we are going to do is create some panels for the front of the card. Now you'll need 2 panels. You can either use 1 piece of cardstock and 1 piece of designer series paper, or 2 pieces of designer series paper or 2 pieces of cardstock. You can mix and match, it's up to you. But the cutting is going to be the same for both, just like we did on to cut the angles on the card. So I've already pre-cut, because I embossed, 1 cardstock panel, but I'm going to show you how to do the cutting with the designer series paper. This is 3 1/4 by 5 1/4, and I like to take my card and look at which way I'm going to do my cutting. So you're going to, again, do 1 panel on the left, 1 panel on the right. So here I want to cut down to the left, so this is where my cutting goes. Now I don't have a score line, but I'm going to use those corners. So my first cut is going to be corner to corner, 1 1/2 inch to the cutting track. Oop. My blade came out of the track there for a minute. So there I've got that top angle. Now I'm going to come back in a little bit, so I'm going to line up corner to corner, 1 inch to the cutting track. I think once you make one of these, you really get a feel for it and it starts to come together a little bit easier. And that is how you do the panel. If I were to, for the other panel, I would just flip the cutting directions and use that right side of the paper trimmer. Now, typically, I always check my fit for the paper, and if you use a piece of paper that's 3 1/4 exactly, it's just the tiniest bit too wide. Now, you really don't even want to take off, you don't want to take off a 1/4 inch, it's barely 1/8 of an inch. So what I like to do is I just take my designer series paper and cut off the tiniest little sliver. You can see, I mean, I don't know if this is even, I don't think that's 1/8 of an inch. It's just a sliver. But when I do that, this panel fits perfectly. So just keep that in mind and definitely check your fit before you do any gluing. All right, so let me put my paper trimmer away. And we will go ahead and glue our panels on. I like to lay my card with the whole thing kind of face up. And this way it's flat and I'm not trying to glue paper on and hold the door shut at the same time. Make it easy on yourself. So I'm going to glue the panels like so. You do not need a special adhesive for this. You can use liquid glue or a tape runner, whatever you prefer. I am using Stampin' Seal Plus. This is my favorite adhesive that we have. And my one recommendation is that you just get to the corners so that your corners don't want to lift up. And then give yourself a little bit of a border around the edge. And there you go. And just repeat for that other panel. If you've got any adhesive showing, just tuck it behind. That way you won't have any sticky spots on the outside of your card. And again, a little border here. And ready to go. Now before I go back to decorating the outside, I'm going to go ahead and put my interior panel together. One thing I want to point out is when you are stamping on the inside, make sure you keep your words low enough that they're not going to peek through up here at the top. It would look a little odd if someone could see words. Now, if you're using a design stamp, a little floral or snowflake stamp, for example, you could definitely have that show. It wouldn't look odd. So for the inside, I'm going to take a piece of basic white that's 5 1/4 by 4. And the stamp sets that I'm using are photopolymer, so I need a little extra cushion underneath. So I have my Stampin' Pierce mat. You could always use a catalog or a phone book, just something with a little give underneath of it. You get the best impression that way with photopolymer stamps. Those are the clear ones that don't have a built-in cushion with the red rubber and the foam. So if you are new to stamping, just remember, stamp gently. Don't smush your stamp down into your ink pad, just tap gently. With photopolymer, you can see if you got good ink coverage or not, which is one thing I love. Remember, don't stamp too close to the top. Kind of press 1, 2, 3 and lift up. So there is my sentiment. Now I'm going to use a floral image for an accent down here at the corner. And I forgot to mention, my Get Well Soon is from the Timeless Tulips stamp set, which has a lot of different occasions covered. Birthday, Get Well, Mother's Day, even Sympathy, and Easter. And then my florals are coming from the hand-penned petals, and I'm using the Feel Better Friend on the front of the card as well. So I've got that. This is a 2-piece stamp, so 2-step stamping. And I love it because the clear stamps allow you to stamp perfectly just by looking through your clear block. So there is the inside panel. I'm going to grab my envelope and stamp my little floral image on the outside of my envelope as well. I like my envelopes to have a little something. A stamp in the corner, some designer series paper on the flap or an embossed flap. But I always like someone to know they're getting something good in the mail when they get a pretty envelope. Ow! Ooh. Goodness, just pinched myself with my ink pad. All right. One tiny other bit of stamping here. I have pre-cut one of the smallest circles from the layering circle set, and my sentiment from the front, or for the front of the card, is going to go right on here. So this way, all my stamping is done, and I can show you how to assemble the card. So bring your card over, grab that insert you just stamped, and glue that in the card. Just leave a little border around the edge, make sure that's nice and straight, press it down. Now, for the outside of the card, you can decide which of the flaps you want to have on the top. You can have your embossed panel on the top, you can have your designer series paper panel on the top. It's really how you want the card to look, what kind of effect you're going for. So I think I'm going to use my DSP on the top. And I have another scallop circle from the layering circles. I'm going to glue this flat on the card. And so I'm going to put adhesive on just half of the circle. My adhesive is not cooperating this evening. There we go. So just make sure if you're using something shape-wise, die cut, or punch that is overlapping this flap that you don't put glue on the wrong half so it will glue the card shut. I have totally done that before. All right. So there's my circle. And you could glue your circles or whatever shape you might be using on with dimensionals as well. I just opted to glue that first part on flat. But I'm going to take this floral image that I pre-cut and stamped and put this on with dimensionals. And again, I'm just going to watch where I put my dimensionals. I know my leaves are going to hang off the edges of my circle. So I'm going to keep my dimensionals focused on the inside of the image, and that way I know I won't accidentally seal my card shut. So there's my focal image, and now a little more glue on my tiny circle. I could put this on with dimensionals as well, but I'm going to tuck it right here so I wanted it flat. All right, so there is my angled fun fold card. Now I have just a couple samples to show you this evening. Obviously you can reverse your panels. I wanted to show you this. I had a card that went a little awry earlier, but I saved it. So you can reverse your panels if you want. You can really experiment with how you want to design the fronts of your cards. So I also have another card. This is using the Painted Poppies stamp set. And you don't have to have a focal image that overlaps the front flap of the card. You can keep it solely on one half or the other. I just used the image here and then I added an accent on the other flap. And there's the inside. Now some people don't like cards that kind of pop open. I think once you were to put this in an envelope, it would want to stay a little bit more closed. But if you don't like a card that's just kind of wanting to open itself up, just create a belly band for your card. All you need is one more piece of cardstock measuring 1 inch by 10 inches, and you simply wrap it around the card and then accent with whatever you like, and that will help you keep the card shut. You can see here that I have stamped with a snowflake image at the top that does show through when I close the card, but that's okay. And then I took my polar bear from some designer series paper and fussy cut him and then put him on a layering circle and then glued that to the belly band with dimensionals. And I do recommend on the back of your belly band, use some tear-in tape. You need some strong adhesive because if this card is opened and closed a lot, it would pull apart if you just used regular glue. So keep that in mind. And don't pull it too tight when you go to wrap the belly band around or you'll struggle to get it on and off the card. This way I have just a little give so that the card recipient knows how to open the card. All right, so there is the double angled front fun fold card. I hope you enjoyed how to make it. I'd love it if you would subscribe to this channel and check out more of my crafting videos. You can also follow me over on Facebook at The Faithful Stamper. Thank you so much for watching. Happy crafting!